Serafina didn't just steal my spotlight. She stole my face. While she poses under the bright ring lights of Beverly Hills, I'm rotting in the shadows of a basement. She took my real-life scars and turned them into a fake sob story on TikTok to rake in 20 million followers. The world cries for her pain, but they don't know that the person actually feeling the sting every time they look in the mirror is me, Ilara, the real brain behind her beauty empire. Every palette she uses, every signature contouring trick, it's all my masterpiece. She's just a hollow plastic doll built from her sister's blood and sweat. But Serafina forgot one thing. Plastic melts under pressure. And I'm the fire quietly burning beneath that perfect mask. Her downfall won't just be a scandal, it'll be an aesthetic massacre. In the sweltering studio lights of our Hidden Hills mansion, the smell of latex gloves and luxury setting powder mixes with expensive espresso, creating a suffocating atmosphere. That place is Serafina's temple, but it's my sweatshop. Every morning before the sun starts baking the palm trees of Los Angeles, I'm already there. My hands might shake, but my precision is perfect as I begin sculpting a goddess. Serafina sits there, as still and empty as a block of unpolished marble, until I touch her. I'm not just doing her makeup, I'm performing a resurrection. I use sculpting techniques to create sharp jawlines she never had, and highlighters to fake a pure soul in eyes that are actually clouded with selfishness. The world is obsessed with Serafina Vance's unreal beauty. They call her the muse of the digital age, but they have no idea that the moment the cameras stop and the ring light dies, that angel starts spitting venom. Ilara, the contour on the left is too high. Are you trying to make me look like an old hag on the live stream? She snaps, her eyes glued to the follower count climbing on her phone. She's never been able to hold a brush without ruining her foundation, yet online, she confidently teaches millions of girls how to embrace their natural beauty. The lie sparkles like a lab-grown diamond, bright but cheap. I've always hidden little secrets in my work. A tiny dot at the corner of the eye, a specific color blend I call the gilded tear. It's my signature, a piece of malware I planted in her beauty to remind myself that I'm the one who truly owns that face. The unfairness didn't stop in the dressing room. During fancy dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants in West Hollywood, I was always the one tucked away in the darkest corner, or sometimes not invited at all. My parents, Julian and Clara, look at Serafina like she's a winning lottery ticket. They talk about million-dollar ad deals and business-class flights to Paris, while I'm only mentioned as my sister's dedicated assistant. Once, when I tried to suggest a new creative concept, my father slammed his wine glass down. His eyes were colder than the ice in his drink. Ilara, you have talent, but Serafina has the it factor. Don't try to steal the light from someone born to shine. Just do your job in the dark. Those words cut deeper than a scalpel, killing the last bit of hope I had for fairness. Everything peaked during the Pure Beauty campaign with a global makeup brand. I stayed up for 3 nights straight, designing a look that would change the industry. A foundation as thin as mist that covered every flaw, a hauntingly flawless beauty. When that campaign blew up, Serafina's face was on every billboard in Times Square. She became the icon of perfection. At the celebration party, while she sipped expensive champagne and took compliments from the LA elite, I stood on the balcony watching my shadow stretch under the moonlight. Serafina walked up, not to thank me, but to whisper in my ear with a voice like ice. See, Ilara? The whole world loves me. And you? You're just a shadow of a shadow. Without me, you're nothing but a freak with a pile of cheap brushes. That's when I realized Serafina's envy had turned into a monster. She didn't just want my light, she wanted to erase me so no one could ever prove she was a fraud. She looked at my calloused hands with total disgust, as if they were stains on her silk dress. I built her crown, and now that crown is starting to choke me. The bigger her success, the more the rot inside her spreads, like cancer hidden under thick powder. I thought family ties could hold that monster back. But in Los Angeles, family is just a commodity you trade for likes and fame. The plastic is starting to harden around my sister's dark heart, and I know a storm is coming. A storm that will soon strip away the mask I worked so hard to build. Envy in the LA influencer scene isn't like normal jealousy. It's like a thick acid that slowly eats away at your soul until only the skeleton of ambition is left. For Serafina, the success of pure beauty didn't bring peace, it just made her terrified of being exposed. She looks in the mirror and doesn't see herself. She sees the features I created. She knows that without my hands, she's a zero among thousands of other pretty faces hungry for her spot. That fear turned into a sick hatred toward me, the only person who holds the key to her embarrassing truth. The turning point happened at a Vogue beauty cover shoot. It was a sticky afternoon at a downtown studio. Marcus, a famous creative director who can see through any layer of makeup, stopped in front of Serafina. Instead of looking at her plump lips or clear skin, he stared at the color blending in her eyelids, a transition from amethyst to smoky silver that took me hours to perfect. Marcus whispered, "This understanding of bone structure and tone. It's not just makeup, it's a soul. You're not just a pretty face, Serafina. You're a true artist." Serafina smiled her media-trained smile, but I saw her shoulders shake. It wasn't emotion. It was humiliation. When Marcus left, she looked at me through the big mirror. Her gaze was so cold it made my skin crawl. She saw me standing in the dark corner, still holding my legendary brush, and she realized that compliment was never for her. She was just a blank wall, and I was the one who painted the masterpiece. In her twisted mind, my existence was a permanent reminder that she stole her talent. She started believing her own lies, that I was plotting to take her down, that I was intentionally leaving my signature so I could one day claim ownership. That night, at our family's $10 million penthouse, things got even worse. My father, Julian, was checking the stats for the upcoming makeup line. He didn't even look at me. Instead, he pointed at his iPad and told Serafina, "You are this family's most valuable asset, Sarah. But Alara's technique is getting too recognizable. People on Reddit are starting to talk about how your makeup looks like some anonymous artist's work. We can't let anyone, even your sister, outshine your personal brand. You get me?" My mother, Clara, gently brushed Serafina's hair, her eyes full of calculation. "Exactly, sweetie. A crown only has room for one head. Alara's presence at shoots is becoming a PR risk." I stood in the hallway, hearing every sharp word hit like nails in my coffin. Serafina's envy was now fueled by the family's greed. This wasn't just a sister fight anymore. It was a purge to protect an empire built on lies. Serafina looked her parents in the eye and gave a wicked smile I'd never seen before. She said casually, like she was talking about changing a package design, "I think Alara needs a break. She seemed mentally unstable lately. Maybe a little accident would make everyone believe she's not fit to work anymore." From that moment on, the house felt heavy with hostility. Serafina began isolating me. She changed passwords to shared accounts, accidentally broke my favorite expensive brushes, and most importantly, started telling staff and friends that I was severely depressed. Every time I tried to speak up, she'd look at me with fake pity. "Did you forget your meds again, Alara? You look so pale." This gaslighting was constant, making me doubt my own reality. The breaking point was when she found out I was secretly building a portfolio to escape. She stormed into my room one rainy night, holding my smashed laptop. "You are going to leave me? You are going to take what's mine?" she screamed, her face distorted with rage. "You're just a parasite living in my shadow, Ilara. If I don't allow it, you'll never see the light of day again." In her eyes, I didn't see the sister I once loved. I saw a plastic monster melting with pure envy. She decided that if she couldn't fully own my talent, she would destroy the person who created it. The plan for the accident began to form in that cold head of hers, a plan to permanently erase the artist behind the mask of Serafina Vance. That night, the studio in Hidden Hills smelled like rubbing alcohol and hot metal from the electronics. It was 2 a.m. LA was glowing outside, but inside this closed room, there was only me, Serafina, and a sense of death hidden behind reflectors. Serafina demanded an emergency shoot for the Inferno Glow line. She wanted an iconic look, glass-like skin contrasting with real sparks from mini flares. It was a crazy idea I fought against, but she just laughed. "Are you scared, Ilara? Or are you just not talented enough to handle the beauty of fire?" I stood there, leaning over her shoulder to apply the final touch of highlighter. I was holding a bottle of high-end organic solvent, an extremely flammable liquid used to create a special shine under high-power lights. Suddenly, Serafina reached out. Not to grab a brush, but to shove a hot, high-output LED studio lamp toward me. It happened in a split second. The lamp crashed, the hot glass hit the chemical shelf, and the solvent in my hand shattered. A dry whoosh filled the air, and the room exploded in a white blur of heat and pain. The first feeling wasn't heat. It was my senses freezing. Then the pain hit, tearing through my skin like thousands of red-hot needles sewing into the left side of my face. I hit the floor, my vision blurring with smoke and tears. But in that moment, I saw something more disgusting than the fire. Serafina wasn't panicking. Through the mirror that was still intact, I saw her step back. She didn't call 911. She didn't look for a fire extinguisher. She slowly pulled out her phone, adjusted the angle, and started recording. She was filming her sister screaming in the flames, her face as calm as a director satisfied with the best shot of their career. "See, Ilara? This is the peak of makeup art," she whispered, her voice cutting through the crackling fire. "This scar will be my permanent ticket to the top." Only when smoke started pouring into the hallway did she start fake screaming, scratching her own hands to play the hero sister trying to save me. At Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where the white lights made everything look like a horror movie, my parents showed up. Julian and Clara didn't rush to my bed to ask about the pain tearing my face apart under the bandages. They stood at the foot of the bed, surrounding Serafina, who was sobbing for the entertainment reporters already waiting. My father leaned down to my ear, his breath devoid of any warmth. "Ilara, listen carefully. This was an accident caused by your own negligence. You had a mental breakdown and knocked over the lamp yourself. Serafina risked her life to save you. If you say anything else, not only is her career over, but this family goes bankrupt. You understand your place now, right?" The gaslighting machine was perfectly greased. The next morning, every headline and social media post read, "The tragedy of the genius behind Serafina Vance. Ilara Vance suffers mental breakdown and self-destructs." Serafina posted a 10-minute video with no makeup, her eyes swollen from crying, telling the world how her sister struggled with the demon of depression. She used my burns to get sympathy, pulling in millions in donations and a massive follower spike. She turned me into a crazy person, a broken shadow locked in an attic room, guarded by nurses who were actually jailers hired by the family. Every night through the locked door, I hear her laughing in the studio below. She's using the techniques I taught her to hide the small scratches on her hands, while my face is turning into a massive scar tissue under white gauze. She thinks she won. She thinks that by destroying my face, she killed my soul and my talent. But Serafina was wrong. Fire can burn skin, but it tempers steel. Beneath these bandages soaked in antiseptic, a new person is being born. and Ilara with no mercy, no sisterly love, only a will as sharp as a scalpel. She gave me a touching story to tell the world, and I promise her, the ending of this story is something she'll never be able to filter away. The attic of the Vance mansion used to be where I kept my design sketches. Now it was a sterile prison. Everything was white, a painful, cold white that drives you crazy. No mirrors. That was Serafina's order. She told the shrinks that seeing my deformed face would make me suicidal. But I knew the truth. She didn't want me to see my recovery. She wanted me to believe I was an unfixable monster. Every day, expressionless private nurses injected me with high-dose sedatives that made my brain foggy and my limbs feel like lead. Every evening, as the pale California sunset bled through the barred window, Serafina would walk in. She'd be wearing expensive silk, smelling like Chanel, a scent that now only smells like rot to me. She'd sit by my bed, stroking the bandages on my face with hands covered in diamond rings, and start her torture with a voice as sweet as poison. "Poor Ilara, how are you today? The doctor says the scars are tightening. It looks horrible." I cried just looking at them. "Don't ever try to look in a mirror, okay? I don't want you to have a heart attack." While she talked, she'd show me her phone, not to let me call anyone, but to show me the glamorous life she was living off my pain. The Inferno Glow campaign was a legend. She was hailed as Hollywood's greatest survivor. On the screen, she was standing at a charity gala for burn victims, wearing a dress as red as the fire that burned me. "I do all of this for my sister," she told the cameras, her eyes faking tears. "Ilara is my soul, even if she's not lucid enough to realize it." I wanted to scream, to rip that fake face off, but the sedatives had my muscles locked. I could only stare at the ceiling while she smirked and whispered, "The whole world believes me, Ilara. Even Mom and Dad signed over the power of attorney. You're just a glitched medical file now." My parents would stop by occasionally. They stood at the doorway, never coming too close, as if my misfortune were a contagious disease that could ruin their expensive clothes. My father would check his watch and report on the company's growth. "You should be grateful to Serafina, Ilara. If she hadn't turned this accident into a PR win, we would have lost millions in stocks. Just stay here, take your meds, and don't cause any more trouble. It's the only way you're still useful to the Vance name." My mother would just leave baskets of white lilies, the kind for funerals, and a disappointed sigh. They had completely erased the genius Ilara, replacing her with crazy Ilara to protect the Serafina money machine. The most twisted part was that Serafina started stealing my old notes to keep her career going. She'd bring my unfinished sketches into the room and force me to explain complex color mixing while I was half-conscious. "Do you want more pain meds? Then tell me, what's the mixing ratio for this palette?" She used my pain and my drug fog to squeeze out the last bits of my talent. Every time I refused, she'd order the nurse to cut my food or turn off the AC in the 100-degree LA summer. She turned me into an intellectual slave in my own home. But in the darkness of isolation, I started noticing cracks in her plastic empire. Serafina was too arrogant. She stopped caring about hiding medical records because she thought I was completely broken. One night, when the nurse fell asleep from the very meds they were giving me, which I had secretly been spitting out and saving, I crawled out of bed. I found an old tablet forgotten in a drawer. The battery was at 5%, but that was enough. I logged onto the web using an anonymous account I'd created years ago as a backup. When I saw the fan comments under Serafina's posts, I saw a spark of doubt. Why does Serafina's style feel soulless lately? Anyone notice the coincidence between the sisters' injuries and the new makeup layouts? That was the only light in this dungeon. I realized that even if they caged my body and ruined my face, they would never own the essence of the art. I started sending the first messages, hidden codes under the name The Ghost of Beauty, to private elite gossip forums. Serafina's plastic mask was starting to crack under the heat of the truth I was quietly building. I wasn't poor Alara anymore. I was a ghost, learning how to hack the system that abandoned me. Darkness is where geniuses are born, but it's also where monsters learn to hunt. In that stifling attic, I stopped crying. Tears only made my unhealed wounds sting, and I didn't have time for weakness. I began my own resurrection, a painful rebuilding process without the help of any Beverly Hills surgeons. By gaslighting the young, lazy nurse named Maya, who spent more time on Instagram than checking my dosage, I turned her into an accidental accomplice. I convinced her I needed high-end serums and makeup chemicals to practice my skills as therapy. In reality, I was using my knowledge of cosmetic chemistry to treat my own scar tissue, preventing it from tightening and smoothing out the skin the fire had ruined. Every night, by the dim light of the stolen tablet, I didn't just look at my scars. I studied them like a map to revenge. I started building an anonymous identity on Twitter and Reddit called The Ghost of Beauty. I didn't attack Serafina right away. The sweetest revenge is slow torture. I began posting deep dive videos analyzing her makeup looks, the ones I had actually created. I pointed out tiny technical mistakes she made while trying to copy my style. Look at the blending in the crease. It lacks the touch of a master. This is a cheap copy of a forgotten masterpiece. These posts started blowing up in the global beauty community, planting seeds of doubt in millions of fans. The climax of my rise was when I hacked into Serafina's personal cloud storage. She was too arrogant to think anyone could touch her secrets. There, I found exactly what I needed: the raw, unedited video from the night of the accident. In a 30-second clip, the camera accidentally caught Serafina looking in the mirror, fixing her hair, while my screams of pain echoed in the background. Her face showed no fear, only cold calculation. My heart beat so fast I thought my chest would crack. It wasn't pain anymore. It was atomic energy waiting to explode. I didn't post it yet. I needed a bigger stage. I needed to turn this into a nuclear blast in the heart of Hollywood. A few days later, Serafina walked into my room looking thrilled. She had just been invited to be a judge for a major beauty pageant. She leaned down, her breath smelling like expensive wine. "See, Alara? The world has forgotten you. Next week, I'm launching a new lipstick line called Scarlet Survival, inspired by your sacrifice. You should be honored that your scars are buying this family a few more mansions." I looked straight into her condescending eyes and, for the first time in months, I smiled. A distorted smile under the bandages, but one full of threat. "Serafina," I said in a voice raspy from the fire, "plastic looks great under lights, but it melts fast when the heat gets high. I hope you're ready for the hottest summer of your career." She froze, her smile dying for a second, but she quickly snapped back into her arrogance. "You really are crazy, Alara. The sedatives are rotting your brain." She turned and left, her heels clicking sharply on the wood floor. She didn't know that as soon as the door closed, I sent an anonymous email to all her major brand partners. The email had no proof, just one image: the gilded tear. Logo painted in blood on a white background, with the words, "The real artist has returned from the dead." My confidence was reviving along with my new skin cells. I was no longer the poor Alara Vance locked in the dark. I was the architect of Serafina's destruction. I started secret physical therapy to regain the flexibility in my hands, turning them into sharp weapons again. I used the darkness of that room as my lab, turning isolation into absolute focus. Serafina thought she had locked me in hell, but she didn't realize I was the devil in charge of the place. Every second brought me closer to the launch of her pure beauty line, the day I would strip off that plastic mask in front of the world and turn her crown into a shameful shackle. The real war was finally starting. The Roosevelt Hotel in the heart of Hollywood looked like a fortress of vanity tonight. Spotlights swept the LA sky, silver beams cutting through the dark to announce the launch of Pure Beauty. The peak of Serafina Vance's Empire of Lies. The red carpet was endless, a deep crimson like fresh blood flowing from the entrance to the lobby, where hundreds of reporters and top influencers were packed together. The smell of expensive perfume mixed with the scent of leather from the Rolls-Royces created a cocktail of power and money. This wasn't just a party. It was the coronation of a plastic queen on a throne built from her sister's ashes. Inside the ballroom, everything was white and gold, symbols of the purity and wealth Serafina always wanted people to see. Crystal champagne glasses clinked over loud laughter while gold leaf appetizers were served by expressionless waiters. In the center of the stage, a massive portrait of Serafina hung, her face edited to absolute perfection, looking down at the crowd with fake holiness. But behind the scenes, in the high-security VIP room, reality was much uglier. Serafina was standing in front of the mirror, her hands shaking so hard she dropped a limited edition lipstick. "Mom, I saw her. I swear I saw her in the parking lot," Serafina hissed, her voice cracking with panic. Even her thick foundation couldn't hide how pale she was. Clara, my mother, was carefully adjusting a diamond necklace on her daughter's neck, her eyes as cold as the gems. "Shut up, Sarah. It's just an illusion from lack of sleep. Ilara is locked tight in the attic with 3 locks. She's not going anywhere unless she can fly." My father, Julian, was nearby checking the pre-order money on his iPad. He didn't even look up. "Don't let your weakness ruin tonight. $50 million in stock depends on you walking onto that stage and smiling like an angel. Remember, Ilara doesn't exist. She's never existed to the public." The gaslighting they used to torture me was now coming back to bite them. Serafina kept checking her phone. The Ghost of Beauty account had just posted a new photo, a plastic crown melting under a black flame, with the caption, "The stage lights are hot, Sarah. Can your mask handle the heat tonight?" This wasn't an empty threat. Serafina felt an invisible presence watching her from every corner. She started doubting everyone, from the makeup artist touching up her powder to the bodyguards at the door. Every phone notification made her jump like a gunshot. Meanwhile, in a dark corner of the second-floor balcony looking over the ballroom, a figure hid behind heavy velvet curtains. I wasn't wearing white bandages anymore. Instead, I wore a delicate silver mask that covered the scarred half of my face, the other half done up in the gilded tear style, a drop of liquid gold flowing from my eye. I stood there, still as a statue of death, looking down at the crazy excitement below. In my pocket was a short-range transmitter I'd built from old electronics. I had hacked into the hotel's internal network days ago, planting an aesthetic virus into the presentation system. Everything was ready for the real show. The audience below was waiting to see the pure beauty, but they were about to get the raw rot of the human soul. I watched Serafina walk onto the stage to thunderous applause. She stood under 10,000-watt spotlights, starting her speech about overcoming hardship and being kind. She talked about me, her poor sister receiving special care, and every word she said felt like a knife cutting the air. I smiled, a smile with no family love left in it. My finger hit the execute button. Hollywood's biggest event was about to turn into a media massacre, where Serafina's crown wouldn't just melt, it would burn down the empire of lies the Vance family had spent years building. The countdown started. 3, 2, 1, and every light in the hotel suddenly went out, leaving a dead silence over the fake glamour. The darkness in the Roosevelt ballroom wasn't just a power outage, it was a ritual silence, before the blade of truth dropped. For 10 long seconds, thousands of people held their breath. Then, the massive 8K LED screen behind Serafina flickered to life. But it wasn't the beautiful imagery of pure beauty. Instead, it was raw, shaky, grainy footage, the video from the phone left behind on that fateful night in Hidden Hills. The first sound wasn't upbeat music, but the sharp pop of the LED lamp and my own soul-crushing scream as the fire began eating my skin. The room went dead silent. On the screen, Serafina appeared, not as an angel of mercy, but as a killer with a doll's face. She stood there, just feet away, calmly fixing her hair while watching her sister writhe in pain. "Just let her burn!" Serafina's voice boomed through the high-power speakers, cold and distorted. "This scar will be the most expensive piece of jewelry you ever gave me, Alara. The world loves a victim, and I'll be the one to tell the story my way." The clip cut to behind-the-scenes footage of another live stream where Serafina laughed at fans sending donations for her poor sister. She held a lipstick and smeared it over a photo of me, muttering, "Those pigs just need a sad story to open their wallets? Pure beauty? No, this is pure profit." The contrast was sickening. As the spotlight suddenly flashed back on, Serafina stood there in her white silk dress, which now looked like a funeral shroud. Sweat started pouring down her face, creating deep grooves in her expensive foundation and revealing the pale skin beneath, frozen in panic. Her plastic mask was literally and figuratively melting. The crowd below began to stir, the whispers turning into insults. Thousands of phones weren't taking photos to praise her anymore. They were live streaming her shame to millions around the globe. Unfollow notifications spiked on her phone like a digital death sentence. Julian and Clara rushed onto the stage, trying to shield their golden daughter. My father grabbed the mic, his face red with rage. "Shut this garbage off. This is a cyber attack. We will sue everyone." But it was useless. I had full control of the hotel's servers. Right then, my voice rang out, not from the stage, but from every corner of the room, filtered through a voice changer but still as sharp as a scalpel. "Good evening, Serafina. Hello, Mom and Dad. You're right. This is an attack. But it's not an attack on a system. It's an attack on the lie you call a family." On the LED screen, the Gilded Tear logo appeared, bright and threatening. A massive line of text flashed. "Beauty is skin deep, but ugly goes all the way to the bone." This was my personal mark, planted in every piece of work, now the smoking gun proving her theft. Serafina screamed, clawing at the air as if she could rip away the images, exposing her rot. "Where are you, Alara? Show yourself. You're just a broken monster. No one will believe you." She had lost total control. Her fake elegance was gone, replaced by the image of a cornered animal, screaming venomous words in front of Hollywood's elite and her business partners. Brand reps started leaving the front rows with looks of pure disgust. $1 million contracts were vanishing into thin air right there. Police and security began entering the ballroom after receiving anonymous evidence of attempted murder and financial fraud I'd sent earlier. In the chaos, I stood on the balcony, looking down at the ruins of the Vance Empire. Serafina collapsed in the middle of the stage, surrounded by the pieces of her fake glamour. The light from the big screen cast a shadow over her, making her look like a freak at her own coronation. Her plastic crown hadn't just melted, it had become a ring of thorns choking her future. My heart didn't feel pain or joy, it just felt a cold, icy peace. This aesthetic massacre was just the beginning of the end for the Vance family. The smell of failure at the Roosevelt Hotel tonight was stronger and nastier than the trash in the back alleys of Beverly Hills. It was the smell of panicked sweat, burning $1 million contracts, and betrayal. When the lights came on, the ballroom that was supposed to celebrate beauty had turned into a modern Roman Colosseum, where the crowd didn't want bread, they wanted the blood of a fraud. A-list stars and famous fashion editors who once fought for a selfie with Serafina now backed away like she was a deadly virus. Cancel culture in America isn't just a trend, it's a digital guillotine, and tonight, the blade dropped on the Vance family at the speed of light. Within 15 minutes of the Just Let Her Burn video going viral, hashtags like Nakhans, the plastic twin, and Arrest Serafina were trending globally on X and TikTok. Brand partners, makeup giants who saw Serafina as a cash cow, immediately released statements cutting ties. Sephora and Ulta announced they were pulling the entire Pure Beauty line from shelves across the country before sunrise. The stock price for Vance Global, the company my father spent his life building through ruthlessness, started free-falling like a plane with no engines. The red numbers on Julian's phone looked like blood dripping from his wallet, and that's when I saw the most disgusting side of my family. The most brutal betrayal didn't come from me. It came from the person who created her. Julian Vance, the father who once called me a PR risk, now looked at his favorite daughter, Serafina, with total disgust. As reporters swarmed and the LAPD moved in, Julian didn't protect Serafina. Instead, he stepped in front of the mics and delivered the coldest blow. "We are absolutely shocked by what we just saw. Serafina has shown signs of severe mental instability for a long time, and we tried to help her in vain. Everything she did to Alara was her own personal action that we knew nothing about. Vance Global will fully cooperate with the investigation to get justice for Alara." Serafina turned to look at her father, her eyes wide, mascara running down her cheeks in ugly black streaks. She couldn't believe the insanity script the family used to cage me was now being used by her own father to throw her into the fire to save his stocks. "Dad, what are you saying?" she stammered, her voice lost in the boos of the crowd. But Julian had already turned his back, signaling his lawyers to start writing the paperwork to disown her. My mother, Clara, who used to brush Serafina's hair and call her an angel, just stood silently by her husband, her eyes icy, looking at Serafina like a piece of broken jewelry that had lost its value. Serafina's loneliness in that moment was my perfect revenge. She was tasting the same abandonment I suffered in that attic. When the officers moved in and handcuffed Serafina right on stage, the sound of metal clicking was sharp and final. She was no longer a beauty icon. She was a suspect in an attempted murder and a massive fraud case. Serafina began to scream, a pathetic, crazy scream that destroyed the last bit of her elegance. She struggled, her blonde hair getting tangled and messy, making her look like the freaks she always looked down on. Everyone around her held up their phones, recording every second of her shame. No beauty filter could hide the ugliness coming out of her. The surface beauty had melted completely, revealing the rot that the whole world could now see. I stood on the highest balcony, watching Serafina being led to a police car through a forest of camera flashes. Los Angeles was still glowing, but the Vance empire was officially a pile of shameful ash. Julian and Clara tried to sneak out the back, but they were surrounded by hundreds of victims of their low-quality makeup and angry fans. Wealth was no longer a shield for them. I felt the cool California night air on my face, where my scars still remained, but they weren't marks of pain anymore. They were medals of a winner who returned from the dead. I took out my phone and hit delete on the Ghost of Beauty account. The ghost's job was done. Now it was time for the real Alara Vance to step out of the dark, not to be an angel, but to watch this world crumble under her feet with total clarity. 6 months after that nightmare at the Roosevelt, the dust has settled, leaving a ruin that even Hollywood's darkest scripts couldn't have predicted. The Hidden Hills mansion is sealed up, the green lawns where Serafina used to pose for live streams now brown and dead under the harsh California sun. The Vance name has become a synonym for fraud and cruelty in the American elite. But for me, Ilara Vance, this isn't an ending. It's the moment I actually started living. No longer a shadow, no longer an intellectual slave, but an independent person with a face I've learned to love, even the parts the fire ruined. Serafina is currently in the Linwood Women's Detention Center, waiting for her final sentencing for attempted murder and large-scale fraud. No more Chanel outfits, no more pure beauty makeup to hide the rot. In the leaked mugshots, she looks like a plastic doll thrown in the trash, matted hair, gray skin, and eyes once full of arrogance, now just two dark holes of despair. She tried to hurt herself by clawing at her own face during a mental breakdown, a bitter irony for someone who thought looks were everything. She screams for our parents, but Julian and Clara are too busy with legal battles to save the last bits of their money. They threw her into the fire to save themselves, just like they did to me. As for my parents, Julian and Clara, they're living in a cramped apartment in the San Fernando Valley, far away from the lights of West Hollywood. Their assets are frozen, their friends are gone, and every time they step outside, the whispers of accomplices follow them like ghosts. They've sent me hundreds of letters and thousands of messages begging for forgiveness, asking me to use my new fame to say something kind for the family. I read them all, but I never reply. My silence is their heaviest sentence. I died that night in the studio, and the loyal daughter they once had vanished with the smoke. I don't owe them a single tear or a drop of mercy. I used the global attention to launch my own makeup brand, Vance, raw and real. No filters, no edits, no fake promises of perfection. In my first ad campaign, I stood right in front of the camera, took off the silver mask, and proudly showed the large burn scars on my left cheek. I didn't wear makeup to hide them. I wore it to celebrate them. The image of the gilded tear flowing down the scar became a new symbol of resilience for women everywhere. Sales didn't just break records. They started a revolution in how people think about beauty. People don't buy my products because they want to look like a doll. They buy them because they want the strength to rise from their own ashes. On a windy afternoon in Malibu, I stood looking out at the ocean. In my hand was the plastic crown Serafina wore at her launch, the one I salvaged from the Roosevelt ruins. I flicked my Zippo lighter and watched the blue flame lick the cheap plastic. It started to warp, turn black, and drip smelly liquid into the sand before disappearing. The crown had melted, and with it all the hate and misery that had chained me for so long. I felt true freedom, a freedom that doesn't need my parents' approval or millions of followers. It's the freedom of knowing your value isn't skin deep. I turned back to the camera of a photographer waiting for my exclusive interview with the New York Times. I smiled, a sharp, cold, but powerful smile. When asked for one final message for Serafina and the fake world out there, I said only one thing, a line that will forever be linked to the Vance sisters, a warning to anyone who builds a throne on someone else's pain. Beauty is skin deep, but ugly goes all the way to the bone. My story isn't about forgiveness, it's about aesthetic justice. The stage lights might go out, but the truth always burns bright.